Hello, Word family. Welcome back. This is the Word Woman, Johanna Quinny. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so. Our focus is on faith, hope, and love. We converse about life situations and how God can help us through the power of His Word. Last week, I talked about how I met my spouse, and I promised that this week we'll talk about how we got into ministry. And so I want to begin by talking about the power of dreams. So many times God wants to speak to us, but because we are so busy with our daily activities, we cannot really focus on the things that the Spirit is saying to us. And so when we lay down to sleep, we are prone to connect to the spirit realm. And then if we are connected to God, we have dreams. And most times the dreams are realities for the future that is revealed to us ahead of time. In Genesis chapter 28, Jacob had a dream. He was fleeing from his brother. He had duped his brother. He has schemed and done evil against his brother. He was fleeing from his brother to his mother's city, or his mother's village, or his mother's family, just to find a place of refuge and a place of safety. And of course, he was running. It got to a point he had to rest. He had to pause. And when he lay down to sleep, his eyes were open. He could see that God was even in that place, but he didn't know it. And he saw that the heavens were open. He saw angels going up and down. And that was where his destiny changed. That was where he was really called. It was proposed from the womb who he would be, right? But when he grew up, there was an encounter for that purpose to become manifest. And so in Genesis chapter 37 as well, we see the story of Joseph. And he was titled Joseph the Dreamer because he was always having dreams. Now, let me say that there is a season for your dreams to be made known to men. If the season is not right, those dreams can be messed with. And the manifestation of your dreams could be delayed just because it's been revealed to someone who should not have heard it at the time. So we know the story of Joseph. I'm not going to go into details there. And also, talking about dreams, Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar, not Daniel, had a dream. And someone needed to interpret that dream. And when God put it in the heart of Daniel to be able to interpret the dream, that was the beginning of a turnaround for him and his friends. Now, looking at Samuel, Prophet Samuel himself, even as a child, hasn't encountered God in any way, even though he was serving at the temple. It got to a point where his master, the priest, had lost connection with God and was physically losing his sight as well. Even couldn't recognize the voice of God, because while Samuel was asleep in 1 Samuel chapter 3, he was called by God audibly. He could hear Samuel, Samuel. And because he could not recognize God's voice as a child, he ran to his master, Eli, the priest, and asked if he was called by him. And he said, "No, I didn't call you, go back to sleep." Even the priest could not even recognize God's voice. And the second time he heard the call again, he ran to his master. He said, "I didn't call you." And the third time he said, "You know what? If you hear the call again, just say, 'Lord, here I am,' because it might be God calling you." And that was the case. God was calling Samuel at that young age. And when he made himself available to God by saying, "Here I am," God gave him some clear directions about the future. Go back to Joseph. In his dreams, God gave him clear directions that he will be a leader. And he didn't really consider it much because he was a child. He was a teenage boy, shared it with his older brothers who, of course, knew the interpretation and were mad at him for trying to show off. Not only was he the father's favorite, now he wants to tell them that he's going to be their leader too. He's going to be their boss too. And they didn't want to hear it. But in all these things, that is why I always say, Romans 8:28, all things work together for good. Yes, he made a mistake by sharing his dreams. Yes, they plotted to kill him. Yes, they wanted to make sure that the dreams did not come to pass. But again, it turned around to be for good. Not only for the dreamer, Joseph, but for the brothers and the entire nation of Israel. Do you know that for there to be a manifestation of the dream of Joseph, different challenges has to come? So many things happen, but in the end, God was glorified because that dream came to pass. Joseph became a leader. It didn't just happen all together automatically. Do you know Pharaoh himself had to have a dream that no man, not his magicians or talebearers, could interpret? But the Spirit of God in Joseph gave him the interpretation, and he became even a manager of Pharaoh himself. And no one in the land of Egypt could lift a finger without the permission of Joseph. Look at God. Look at God. Picking a man from nowhere to somewhere of importance and relevance. Look at David, a nobody, forgotten in the desert. But God picked him up from the desert into the throne. That is what God can do. So back to my story. Sometime in 2012, I had a revelation. I had a dream, and that dream was a revelation. If you have listened to my past videos, you will say I mentioned never thought I would be in ministry, never dreamed of it, never desired it. But God had better plans. And the truth is, when you are fulfilling God's purpose, God will make your own desires to be met and your own desires to be fulfilled. So sometime in 2012, I had a dream. And in that dream, at the time, we were attending a church called Redeemed Christian Church of God, right? And one thing that is very paramount in that ministry, one of their focus is evangelism, planting churches. And in that dream, I was part of a team that was planting a new church. It was around Easter. And I was like the leader in mounting the banner, which is a signpost for the church. And on the signpost was written, Bible Faith Ministries, Saved to Serve. Now, at this point, my husband was already a minister at this church we were attending. Even from Nigeria, he was already in ministry. Even when he shared it with me, I called him up. I'm like, you know what? That is not my calling. I am not into ministry. You can serve in the church and become a minister and do your thing there, but not actually begin a ministry yourself and run the ministry. And so I had that dream that night. And that same night, you will not believe it, my husband woke up. We slept on the same bed. He woke up and said, babe, I had a dream. You want to interpret the dream? He always does that. So he shared the dream with me. And in this dream, he was in a gathering where they were in a fellowship, but there was no pastor at the church. And he was they were talking about, okay, who's going to be the pastor to intervene people? And all of a sudden, the microphone was given to him, and he was told to go to the pulpit, that he's going to manage this ministry. And he was like, okay, what is the name of the ministry? How would I begin, or how will I manage a ministry or serve in a ministry where we don't even have a name? And while he was conversing with those people to say, we need a name for this ministry because we can't move on, because if we want to evangelize, who are we going to say we are? He woke up. So when he told me that, I said, babe, I have the name for the ministry. That is the dream I had. God just gave me the same revelation. And I shared the dream I had with him. And he was like, wow, that is it right there. And that's how we began to make plans on how to begin the work of God and how to fulfill our calling. I didn't need any conviction anymore. I knew that this was what God wanted me to do. He was going to be the leader, and I was going to support him. We are saved to serve. If you cannot serve, you cannot be a master. Every master, every leader must begin by being a servant. So that's how in 2012, my husband began to do some research how he can go back to school to equip himself. Then myself too, we got into Christ for the Nations here in Dallas, Texas. Went through some programs, and here we are 8 years later. So he took a year off. Of course, we began Bible study, just studying the word more, inviting some people to join our Bible study. And in 2014, or this year made it 8 years. 2014, we launched out into a full-blown church. And we are called today Bible Faith Ministries.